I took ultimate revenge on my cheating wife and brother who fathered my son, and it started as an ordinary day. I had dropped my car off for maintenance and decided to take a ride home with the service technician instead of returning to the office. The warm late spring air hinted at the yard work waiting for me, so I grabbed a rake and got to work near the back of my property. That's when I saw it, my brother's red Corvette pulling into my driveway. Eric never showed up unless he needed something, and he rarely returned what he borrowed. Annoyed, I made my way toward the driveway. As I got closer, I heard my son, Sam, call out, "Hey, Dad, what brings you to the land of wimps?" Wait, Dad? My stomach twisted. Why did Sam just call Eric Dad? And what was this about the land of wimps? Eric chuckled. Just returning Uncle Joe's circular saw. Accidentally cut the electrical cord, so he needs to fix it before I can finish my project at home. Clueless Joe around? Clueless Joe. That's what they called me behind my back. My grip on the rake tightened, but I stayed hidden, phone recording in my pocket. Sam scoffed. Clueless? Car's not here. He rarely gets home before 5, and I try to avoid him anyway. Avoid me? My own son? Hey, now that school's out, when can I come stay at your place? Sam asked. It's way more fun than being around here. I felt a sharp pang in my chest. My son, my only child, preferred being with Eric over me. Eric's voice turned soothing. He'd love to have you over, but your mom wants to cherish every moment with you. You're her only child, and as you get older, she'll miss you. Cut her some slack. She's supposed to spend time with me next Thursday. I'll talk to her about you staying for a week or two this summer. Then came the question that shattered my world. Why doesn't Mom just leave Clueless and live with you? A deep, gut-wrenching silence followed. I held my breath, praying I had misheard. Eric let out a smug chuckle. Ever since I got her pregnant with you, I've been asking her that. Every month, she tells me the same thing. Joe's great in bed, but he'd make a terrible husband. I felt the earth shift beneath me. My world, my marriage, everything had been a lie. My wife, Carol, had been sleeping with my own brother for years, and now I was hearing that my son wasn't even mine. A cold fury washed over me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I needed proof. Years ago, we had all taken a 23andMe DNA test for fun. Could Carol have tampered with it? Could she have swapped my sample with Eric's to hide the truth? I needed answers. But most importantly, I needed revenge. The next evening, we were at my parents' house for my father Edward's 70th birthday. Carol and Sam rode separately, and I took the opportunity to observe them. I had spent the night watching Carol, looking for any signs of deception. If she had been cheating all these years, she hid it well. Eric greeted my mother first, then hugged Sam. When he extended his arms for Carol, her hug was lifeless. No excitement, no spark, just boredom. Interesting. At dinner, I played dumb, pretending nothing was amiss. But then, I dropped my first bait. Eric, I need to meet with our CPA Thursday afternoon. Will you be at the office to cover for me? He frowned. Nah, I've got a big project going on. Carol, sipping her iced tea, suddenly choked on a bubble. Tell. I smirked. Big project, huh? Gonna leave you sweaty and exhausted? Eric grinned. Nah, I've worked with this person plenty of times. I always come out on top. Carol's face drained of color. Her grip on her glass tightened. The entire room fell silent, tension thick enough to slice with a knife. Dad cleared his throat, breaking the awkward pause. Speaking of big decisions, boys, it's time for a change in leadership. He straightened in his chair. Eric will be taking over as president of Tyndall Machine Company. I blinked. What? To ensure fairness, Joe, your salary will always be 75% of Eric's, Dad continued. With your income from patents, you'll both be earning about the same. I clenched my fists under the table. This was an ambush. Eric smirked. Face it, Joe. I've always been the leader while you were busy crunching numbers. It takes an alpha male to run a business. You? You're a wimp. That was it. My entire life had been a joke to them. My wife, my son, my company, everything had been stolen by the man sitting across from me. I took a deep breath and went for the kill. Dad, looking at these family portraits, I just realized something. I don't look like any of you. Eric and Sam? They look just like you. But me? Not so much. Mom's face paled. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Well, Joe, there's something we never told you. His voice was strained. You're not my biological son. A heavy silence fell over the table. Mom's voice cracked. You were conceived before your father and I married. I was with someone else the night of my bachelorette party, but I didn't know I was pregnant until after the wedding. We confirmed with a DNA test when you were 10. A bitter laugh escaped me. So I've been lied to my whole life. Mom reached for my hand. That doesn't change how much we love you. I yanked my hand away. Maybe, but it explains why Eric was always the favorite. Dad sighed. That's not all. Joe, Carol struggled to conceive. The doctors said it was likely due to your severe case of mumps as a child. I felt my stomach drop. You couldn't father a child, Dad continued, voice quiet. Carol turned to your mother for advice. We decided that, for the good of your marriage and the family, Eric should be the one to father your child. My entire world shattered in that moment. Eric smirked, leaning back in his chair. And guess what, Joe? You were clueless the whole time. That was the moment I decided. This wasn't just about uncovering the truth. It was about revenge. And by the time I was done, they'd never see me coming. We had hoped this secret would never come to light, but with DNA tests and the stark differences between Tyndalls and non-Tyndalls, it was bound to surface eventually. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, a tornado of disbelief and betrayal tearing through me. I struggled to find words, my voice strangled by the weight of this revelation. Both my mother and wife enveloped me in tender, sorrowful embraces, their eyes glistening with tears. My son, my mother whispered, her voice quivering. I'm so proud of you. Carol held me tighter. My husband, my love, I adore you so much. Then my father, or rather, Edward spoke. Joe, our hope was that you wouldn't take offense, but instead feel the love your family has for you. I turned to him, my voice colder than ice. Edward, can I even call you that now? Now that I know you're not my father? Why would you ever think I wouldn't mind being the joke of my entire family? Sam scoffed, his tone sharp. Now you know how embarrassed I felt, having everyone think you were my dad instead of a real man like Eric. The room froze. Carol's palm cracked against Sam's face, the sharp slap echoing off the walls. Joe has been the best father to you, she yelled, her voice cracking with desperate defense. He's done everything to make you happy. I've seen kids with worse fathers, but none as good as him. You should be grateful he raised you. I let out a bitter laugh. Grateful? I sneered. Grateful for what? For all the years you never gave a damn about me? For the truth you hid from me for so long? You let me live in a lie. Did you laugh behind my back every time I called Sam my son? Is that why you gave me the nickname Clueless Joe? The room fell silent, thick with tension. Edward sighed, the weight of the confession hanging in the air. We couldn't tell you, Joe. It would have destroyed you. And we needed you, needed your brilliance. The plant would have crumbled without you. You were the reason we could thrive. If you'd left, we'd have lost everything. Headhunters were offering CFO and coup salaries more than double what we paid you. A cold rage twisted in my gut. So, let me get this straight. You arranged for my own brother to father a Tyndall child with my wife, kept me working for pennies, all so you could pad your profits? You fed me a lie about the future, pretending I'd lead the company, while in reality, the Tyndall name was more valuable than any talent I brought to the table. My voice dropped to a lethal calm. And now, you're going to tell me my wife is still with Eric? The room froze in suffocating silence. Carol's voice, shaky and full of guilt, broke through the stillness. I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't want this. But you have to understand the pressure I was under at work. I didn't love him. I hated him. But I needed him to stay sane. She crumpled to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Part of me wanted to comfort her, but it was buried beneath a mountain of betrayal. She had made her choices, choices that had destroyed everything. Edward stepped forward, his voice trembling. Son, don't call me that, I roared, my fury exploding in a storm. You have the nerve to call me son after everything? After you tore my life apart? After you let Eric's bastard child take my place, all while I worked myself to the bone? I was a joke to you. I was a tool, a pawn in your twisted game. I shook my head, disgust twisting my features. You all deserve what's coming. I turned to leave, but before I could, a hand gripped my arm. Joe, if it matters to you, I'll stop sleeping with your wife, Eric sneered, his eyes glinting with arrogance. She's all stretched out from me anyway. I'm just giving her back to you. That was it. The final spark. I whirled around, fury exploding from deep within. My fist flew, aiming for his face, but he was taller than I'd realized. My knuckles collided with his throat. His smug grin vanished, replaced by a strangled gasp. He dropped to his knees, clutching his throat. Without thinking, I drove my foot hard into his groin. His scream ripped through the room as he crumpled to the floor. Carol and Sam rushed to him, Sam in horror, Carol in a white-hot rage. You bastard, Sam screamed. But Carol? She kicked Eric with every ounce of fury she had. You piece of trash. You deserve this. I turned and walked out, grabbing Carol's keys. Without hesitation, I reversed the car straight into Eric's precious Corvette. As I sped away, I swiped the side of Edward's brand new F-150, the sound of metal scraping against metal sweet music to my ears. The adrenaline coursing through me, I drove to an abandoned gas station, my chest heaving with fury. I cried until I could barely breathe. Then I beat the steering wheel in rage, my fists pounding until exhaustion finally took over. But one thing was clear. I wasn't just leaving. I was making them regret every last lie. By Sunday, I was at Tyndall Manufacturing. The office was quiet, just the way I wanted it. As CFO, I had access to everything. I drained the accounts, maxed out every credit line, transferred the funds to an offshore account. I locked down the systems, changed the passwords, and shut off the power, taking the entire plant offline. Before I left, I raided Eric's office, swiping everything, video files of him with staff, with wives, with Carol. I saved it all to a thumb drive. Then, I walked away from Tyndall Manufacturing for good. By Monday, I was on the phone with my lawyer. Divorce was inevitable, and I wasn't going to let Carol or Sam get away with anything. Carol had made her choices and now she'd face the consequences. Ignoring the flood of texts and emails from my family was easy. They wanted me to come back, to talk, to forgive. But no, clueless Joe was gone. Fearsome Joe had been born. "Do you want me to open Pandora's box?" my lawyer asked as he secured my next steps. Within a week, I was in meetings with 3 rival companies interested in my expertise and patents. I had no reason to stay in this town. At 43, I needed a fresh start. A month later, I learned that Edward had gone to the authorities, accusing me of embezzlement. His plan was to set up a new signer on the Tyndall account, but he needed to go to the Cayman Islands to make it happen. Too bad for him. He hated the idea. I laughed when Carol tried to reach out to me. She was still playing her game. I ignored every call, every message, every letter. She wasn't getting a single ounce of sympathy from me. When she threatened to delay the divorce over the college fund and car, I shot back. "Split it, or I'll file a fraud claim. I'll expose Sam's true paternity. The world will know what the Tyndalls did." A week later, she agreed to sign, but only if we met. I was done with her, but I agreed. I insisted on recording the meeting for my protection. When I showed up at our old house, I saw her standing there, no pretense, just the weight of what would become between us. We sat down, and for the next 15 minutes, she played the cheater's script. Apologies, please, the same tired excuses. She even mentioned how my mother forgave Edward. But I wasn't buying it. I didn't care. I counted the times she said, "I'm sorry." I couldn't keep track. When I asked, "Why?" she hesitated, then admitted the truth. She had been pressured by Edward into having a child with Eric. And when that didn't work out, she'd stayed with Eric because she thought she deserved to be treated poorly. I let her stew in her guilt as I threw the questions at her, each one cutting deeper than the last. "How many times did you let him in while I was at work?" Her silence spoke volumes. "Did I ever kiss you after you'd been with him?" I asked, the words burning in my throat. Her answer? A whisper. "Yes." I couldn't hold back. The rage, the betrayal, it all came crashing down. I didn't just feel angry. I felt sick. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I vomited all over her, everywhere. I didn't care about the mess. I didn't care about her anymore. 2 weeks later, the divorce was final. She got the house, the college fund, the car. I walked away with what was mine, and I didn't look back. The Tyndalls? They wanted to avoid the scandal, but it was too late. The videos I'd taken from Eric's office went viral. The Tyndall family was exposed for everything they were: greedy, corrupt, and broken. A month later, the company collapsed. The family farm was sold off, and the Tyndalls were reduced to a shadow of their former selves. Their empire was gone. As for me, I had a new life. Donan Manufacturing was thriving, and I was finally in control. I walked into the office as president, a new man. "Did you miss me?" I grinned, watching the room's confusion turn to recognition. Guess Eric wasn't such a great president after all, I said, as the employees roared in approval. The name on the building? Donan Manufacturing. And I was just getting started.